coach. So maybe I'll take a moment to just explain a little bit what a coach is. So cancer coaches, we are health coaches who have experience and expertise in oncology. And we are there to help people going through cancer and their caregivers with the challenges of living with cancer. So for some people that maybe they're looking for help in preparing questions for their first appointment with an oncologist. Maybe it's support on how to tell their kids about their cancer diagnosis. Maybe as a caregiver, it's you're wanting to know how to be a more confident caregiver, to know how can you support your loved one and to have someone there to help you in figuring that out as you navigate this new role. For other people, maybe it's help in dealing with stress and anxiety, or help around going back to work or making decisions regarding treatment, regarding how to manage side effects. So as coaches, we help you with a wide range of things. And our goal is really to work in partnership with you to figure out what can you do to take control when you're going through this? What can you control, and helping you to develop tools and strategies and things to help you feel a better sense of control. So our cancer coaching program is available to anyone who's living in Eastern Ontario or on the Ottawa side in Gatineau. So if any of you would like to find out more, you can visit our website at ottawacancer.ca and look up information on cancer coaching and see if it's a program that might be helpful to you. And you can register on our website to connect with a coach. We do it all by telephone and video chat right now. So that's a little bit about our program. But today, really the reason I'm here is to talk to you a little bit more about caregiving. And, this is something many of you are familiar with because you are caregivers to a loved one who is going through cancer. And the purpose of today's workshop is really to explore the needs that many caregivers have, some of the challenges that they face, and the impact that all this can have on you and your life and your family's life. We'll also look at different strategies and tools to help you feel like a more confident caregiver and start to help you think about what changes you would like to make or things that you would like to do to help you create a plan for moving forward, to take care of you as a caregiver, to support your loved one, and to ensure a good balance between the two. So caregivers are an important resource in the healthcare system. So they're really an invaluable part of care. So according to the Ontario Caregivers Association, caregivers are the single most valuable resource when it comes to the healthcare system. And caregiving is not always easy. There's many different challenges. So there was a report that was done by the Change Foundation back in 2019 on family caregivers in Ontario. And what they found was that a lot of caregivers face a lack of emotional counseling services available. So it was hard for them to find support as they were going through this. It was hard to coordinate care with the healthcare system. Healthcare systems are very complex and it's not easy to navigate them. Part of our role as cancer coaches is also helping people navigate that healthcare system. So if you're struggling with that and you live in that area, in this area, know that we are here to support you. And financial hardships. So when families are going through cancer, it has a whole impact on your finances, and you're not able to work, and there's all these different costs that come up when you're going through cancer, and you add on top of that COVID-19 and the challenges that's faced, that's added for families, and it's very challenging. So caregivers are facing many different challenges. And a lot of caregivers have many information and support needs that often go unmet, and they're at risk of burnout. So because oftentimes when you're caring for a loved one who's going through cancer, you're very focused on them and on their needs, but you have needs as well. And so it's important in order to best be a support to people going through cancer, you have to take care of you as well. So there are different ways to be a caregiver. A caregiver can mean many things. It can mean, someone who, offers a few hours of caregiving every week to, being home full time with a partner who's going through this, for example, and, spending most of the day being there and supporting them. And you might be a caregiver to a spouse, to an adult child, to a pediatric child, to another family member or friend. And it doesn't really matter who you're caregiving to. the challenges that caregivers face is very diverse. So, it can be, maybe it's providing emotional support and a listening ear, maybe advocating for your loved one, organizing care, and it can all take a toll on you. So what you may experience, caregiving isn't easy, has an impact on your life, your family, your career. You may feel exhausted trying to find a balance between providing care and working, juggling family life and creating time for yourself. There's also this huge sense of uncertainty when a loved one is going through cancer. And, it can be hard to know sometimes, what are we going to face? What are going to be the challenges? How's this treatment going to work? And knowing what the road ahead can be like. There's often a shift in roles and responsibilities. For example, you might find if your spouse is diagnosed with cancer, and there may be certain responsibilities and things that they did around the house that now you're taking on. Maybe it's a parent that's diagnosed, and maybe they were the person you went to for advice and support, and now the tables have turned a little bit. So there can be a real shift in roles and responsibilities that way. And, emotions that can come up are very diverse. So, disbelief and denial, feeling like this can't be happening. How is this happening? And times when it just feels like maybe they made a mistake. Maybe this isn't happening, especially newly diagnosed as you're going through this. Grief is, sometimes we think that grief is when someone has died, but grief is actually the reaction and the range of emotions that comes when you face any type of change or loss. So when you're going through, even, you might have had an idea that maybe you were retiring and your loved one got diagnosed. You can be grieving. This is not what I expected right now. This isn't what I thought was going to happen in my retirement. And we've seen, people go through all types of different life situations. I remember a dad that had a new baby and was diagnosed. That's not how he thought he would spend paternity leave, right? So all types of different situations. Fear and anxiety are really high for both the patient and for caregivers. There's a lot of thoughts and worries about the future and what's going to happen, and constant waiting for results and for information. Anger, feelings of guilt, feelings of helplessness, and feelings of hope as well. So people experience a wide range of things. And we often have expectations. I know I meet a lot of people who, are the helpers, or the people that, are there for their loved ones and they care for them. And the problem is it's hard to juggle it all. And people feel like I should be able to do all this. I shouldn't need to ask. Let's say, for example, it's a spouse that's caring for their loved one, and family members and friends are offering to help, and they're saying no because they're thinking I should be able to handle this. But the problem is that there's a lot to handle. There's a lot going on, between drives to the hospital, to, going to all the appointments and taking notes, to making meals, to working, to, communicating with and giving people updates. It's a lot for anyone to be going through. And one of the best things you can do is really reflect on your strengths. What are some of the ways that you can help? Think of what are the things you're really good at, and asking for help for the things that you might find more difficult, or enlisting more help, maybe house cleaning, for example, or getting meals delivered. If family and friends often, they want to help and they don't know how. And so it can be really good to accept some of that help, not only for yourself, you have less on your plate, other people feel something they can do certain things. Good if you're not needs, you're assuming the other person needs. Ask questions. What role that person. I'll give you an example. A dad whose adult daughter was going through cancer, and he felt like, okay, I'm going to bring her to all of her appointments because she lives alone. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And he kind of created in his head, like, this is what she's going to want from me. And then one day, you know, they were talking and he was, I'm going to do this, I'm going to bring you here, and she started saying, that's not what I want. That's not what I need from you. And as they communicated about it, she really shared with him that what she needed from him, what role she wanted him to play, was the person that makes her laugh, the person that she can watch movies with, the person that, you know, can take her mind off cancer. She wanted to handle the rest. And she had other people around her that were taking on different roles, but she didn't want him to do all that. So it's good to talk to your loved one and to ask them, what are the things you want me to take on? Or what are the things that I can do that can most help you? And to think about as well, if you take on all these things, how are you going to be? You know, how is that going to impact you? Are you able to really take on all that? Because sometimes people will take all that on and then they're not doing well and they're really burning out. And so to think about what's going to make this work, person, for you, you know, how will you work this out together? So communication is so key with your loved one around all that. So I talked a little bit about it, but just coming back to grief, there is the, as you're going through this, the recognition that, you know, this isn't what I thought. This isn't what I expected. I didn't expect this cancer diagnosis, and taking time to process and grieve that. There's also, you know, changes in relationship dynamics, as we've talked about briefly. So you're trying to figure out this new patient caregiver relationship. And sometimes that can be, you know, very odd or uncomfortable. For example, you know, if your spouse, you know, you have a very intimate relationship with a spouse. So as you're caring for them, you know, they may be sick, they may be throwing up, they may be uncomfortable with you seeing that because of your intimate relationship. You know, you may be caring for a parent who has cancer and you may be helping them bathe, or you may, and those are things that they may not be as comfortable with, or these are new things that are different and that don't typically fall within the parent-child relationship, the spouse relationship. And so changes in that relationship dynamic can be really difficult. And when people are, you know, your loved one may be someone who's always been in control, who's always been very independent, able to care for themselves and fiercely independent. And suddenly, you know, they may need more support from you. And that can be uncomfortable sometimes for you, for them. And there's grieving that as well. The fact that I never thought I would have to ask my spouse to do these things, or I never thought that I wouldn't be able to take on these things I could do before. I was speaking to a client earlier today about who's been thinking about return to work and who had this realization that it's not like I can go back and get my way through it. Everyone's saying just one step at a time, you can do this. That client was saying to me, it really hit me that I am not able to go back to work right now. That even if I tried, I don't have it in me. And that's really hard. And that's really brings a lot of grief for people. Physical needs. So maybe your family member is quite ill and needs help with, as we talked about, injections, showering, going to the bathroom, and this can be a big change for both of you. New responsibilities. So we talked about that a bit already. So taking on these new responsibilities, these are changes in a relationship and it can have an impact on them. Emotional needs. So your loved one may be experiencing a wide range of emotions, and they may want to talk about it, or you might try to bring up the topic and they really don't want to talk about it. It can be hard to know, what do I do to help them through this? And sexuality and intimacy. So as we talked about briefly, you know, if it's a spouse that you're caring for, not only can cancer and stress and surgery and all these things, you know, have an impact on sex, but it can also, you know, make it that, you know, your spouse might be very fatigued, they may be nauseous, and different emotions can come from that, right? Sometimes people feel that, you know, that sadness, that intimacy has been impacted, or that, you know, they're not as sexually active with their partner as they have been in the past. And again, the problem with expectations or assumptions is another story was a couple where in this instance, it was so a man and a woman in this situation. And what had happened is the woman had in this case, a bit different, it was breast cancer, but she had breast cancer and she didn't feel comfortable in her body. And so she felt, uncomfortable with that. And her spouse was thinking, well, who am I to try to make a move on her and to try to initiate a sexual relationship when she's gone through cancer, like she's going through treatment, like she's not going to want that. And he hadn't clarified that with her. He hadn't brought it up. He just assumed that. In her head, she was thinking, well, he's not coming on to me. He doesn't find me attractive. My body has changed and he doesn't want me anymore. And they went on like this for almost a year of, not having any intimate relationships. So again, the importance of communication with your partner around that and finding ways to connect and also knowing that there are times you may not connect as much, but what helps you in your relationship to keep it strong? What are the things that are important, whether that be sexual intimacy or not? How do you keep that relationship, support each other and tune into that aspect of your relationship? So it's normal to miss things the way things used to be in your relationship with your loved one. And as we talked about, grief is not only sadness and loss when someone dies, grief is also experienced by anyone coping with a loss or change. It can be the little things in your routine that you miss, like, the morning routine with your spouse that all of a sudden is gone, activities you used to do together. Maybe you loved hiking, maybe you loved, paddle boating, or you loved certain things and your spouse isn't able to do that. And it can happen at different periods in your life. And this may not have been what you expected at that point in time. So facing cancer as a family, just a quick note here that when families are going through cancer, different people grieve differently and experience a sudden thing like cancer differently. So for some people, you may see coping styles where someone's very emotional. You may see someone else that kind of withdraws completely. And, family members or friends that you really expected were going to be there that have really pulled away. And that can be really hard and disappointing. You may see some people that are all about, we're going to take action, we're going to do this, and who are planners. So everyone copes differently, and just something to be aware of that, again, communication, talking, but everyone's got their different coping strategies. And that can be really tough sometimes when it conflicts with how you would cope with something. So there's many ways you can provide support. So we're going to, through the presentation, I'm going to mention kind of practical, emotional support, different ways to be there for your loved one. So these are just some examples of practical support. So you can help by educating yourself about your loved one's diagnosis, their treatment options, finding out information too on healthy eating, on exercise. You can also help by being an advocate and helping them to get the care they need. If there are certain things that the doctors are saying that you're thinking, no, we need an appointment sooner than that, or you can push for things. You can try to advocate for your loved one. Keeping an accurate and up-to-date medical journal. So I often see caregivers that will keep binders and they will put together, all the medications their loved one's on, all the notes from all the appointments. That can be really helpful to bring to appointments. Practical support can also be administering medications, injections, as we talked about, bathing a loved one, offering different care, cooking and providing nourishing meals to your loved one, ordering prescription renewals, getting necessary medical supplies and equipment, being a liaison with healthcare professionals concerning side effects and needed services, household tasks, maintenance, bills, things like that, providing feedback to family members and friends, and contributing to financial stability by working outside of the home. So how to educate yourself. One of the things to do is to educate yourself. So some really good thing as you're looking at websites online, it's really good to ask yourself who runs the website, who funds the website, How current is the information, and where do they get their information? So you want to find good, credible sources when you're looking up information online, and you want to ensure that the information isn't biased in any way. So if, for example, it's a pharmaceutical company that's writing the article, they're going to try to lean you towards purchasing the medication. So you want to see, you know, find some good, reputable sources. So there's all types of good websites out there. And these are just a couple, but just to remind you too of the Brain Tumor Foundation Canada is a really good resource to look at as well. So emotional support, you can provide emotional support by offering a listening ear and providing emotional support to your loved ones. So just really listening. And it's not about fixing it. And we all want to fix it because we don't want to see our loved ones going through difficult, but just by listening and acknowledging that your loved one is going through something hard and saying like, yeah, that must be really hard. Like you're feeling scared or you're feeling worried about the future. I'm feeling that too. That can actually make a big difference just so that that person feels heard, right? The person that you're caring for. Often people know that you can't fix it. They just want you to hear them, and they want to feel that you're truly with them. You can also help by trying to give your loved one as much control as possible. So I remember a spouse that I was working with who their loved one's health and mobility was really declining. And one of the things their spouse was still able to do was to take the laundry and to put it on hangers. And they felt though that they should do it instead of their spouse who was still able to do it, because they felt like, well, who am I to get, they've got enough on their plate. They just need to work. But the thing is, that was the one thing that person could still do to contribute to the household. And it was something that was important to them. They wanted to feel that there was something they could still do to help. So it's good to allow your loved one to still do things, even if you feel like you should do everything. You want them to feel that they have a sense of control, things they can still do. Helping them to set realistic goal, maintaining a normal family routine as much as possible, by acknowledging the changing role of your relationship and balancing being a caregiver with, again, as we mentioned, also with being a spouse, being a parent, being a daughter or son, inviting family members and friends to visit, focusing and fostering a positive feeling for yourself and in the household, and acknowledging your loved ones questioning that can sometimes happen of beliefs and helping them to connect to a spiritual or religious leader as needed. So these are just some of the ways. This is a difficult period for many people, and you're probably feeling a range of emotions. And again, communication may not always be like it used to. And from time to time, you might snap at each other more. So it can be hard to know what the right thing to say is. And the truth is that, as I mentioned, the best thing you can do is really to listen and to validate their experience. So putting yourself in their shoes can give some perspective. So I'm going to stop sharing my slide for a moment. I'm going to play a short video from you. And this is from Brené Brown. Some of you may have already might be familiar with her in some of her books. So she is a social worker, and she did a wonderful video that's very short that I'm going to play called Empathy versus Sympathy. And in it, she so eloquently says, empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. So let's talk about what is empathy and how it's different from sympathy. So let me stop sharing. Stop share, and I'm going to pull up the video. All right, let's the video now. Share screen. Here we go. I'm going to try the video. Let's see if the sound will work. I'm hoping it will work for us. Share sound. That typically works. Let's try this.
Perfect, Melina.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Karen.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right, so I'm just going to come back to the slides. Turn that video off. Yes, go. All right, let me share my slide, share screen. Oh, it brought me back to the beginning. All right. Oh, no, there we go. So what do you need to hold space and show up for someone? You need empathy, respect, and understanding. So you need to really, like they said in the video, allow yourself to just imagine what that's like. Maybe remember a time where you felt overwhelmed about something, and not necessarily to share that, but to just connect with that and remember a time when you felt like there was no hope, or you felt like this was too much, and just think of what that's like and be really there with that person. Like, yeah, that's really hard, you know, and just be present to them. You need to respect where that person's at in their journey right now, and to have that understanding about it's hard. It's hard when you're going through something challenging like this. You need energy and an open mindset. It's not easy to hold space for someone. So make sure you know that it's a moment when you really can listen fully to them. And that's one reason why self-care is so important for caregivers. You need to nourish yourself and take care of you so that you can better hold space for your loved one. Self-awareness is good. So it's important to know when someone says something and it really triggers you, or they say something and you really don't understand it. Let's say you have a loved one who's saying, I don't think I'm going to get treatment, or I don't want more chemo. And in your head, you're thinking, oh my goodness, you must get chemo. And you're trying to talk them out of it. What that person may be describing is really how they're feeling exhausted about this. So taking some time to really listen and tell me more. Like, you know, you're saying you don't want chemo. What's going on around that? Maybe, you know, it sounds like you're really feeling defeated about getting more chemo, and find out from them what's happening. Maybe it's, yeah, I've just been so tired from this and it's really hard and I can't do such and such thing I used to do. Maybe there's a way to figure that out. Maybe but not jumping to assumptions that they just don't want to get more treatment. Maybe there's a reason why, and maybe there's a way to figure out and problem solve that. And sometimes people have different things that can be worked through. You also need compassion, kindness, warmth, and an acceptance that everyone has their own rhythm and process. You can't force someone to talk, but you can let them know that you're here. So let them know that you're there for them, and have the courage to say and to really mean that you will be there whenever they want to talk, and show kindness and go at their own rhythm. So some techniques for good communication: active listening. So this is the type of listening where you're not focused on what you're going to say next. You're not focused on thinking about your grocery list. It really takes a conscious effort of being completely attentive and present to the other person, to what they're saying, and just really listening, fully putting your attention on them. Some other techniques that are often used by people, and I mean, you see a lot of social workers and counselors use these, is one of them is recapping. So this is repeating what the other person is saying using their own words. So for example, your loved one may say, "I'm finding it really hard to always feel sick and be throwing up all the time." And you might say back something like, "You're finding this really hard to be sick all the time, I'm hearing." And you're using those same words. Another one is paraphrasing. So this is summarizing in your own words what the other person is saying. So for example, your loved one might say something like, "I just want to make the best decision about my treatments, but I don't know what that is." So paraphrasing it would be saying it in your own words. So I might say something like, "It sounds like you're really unsure of what the right choice might be, and you want to make sure you make the right one." So I'm taking what the person says, I'm saying it in other words, and often that person feels like, "Yeah, you hear me." That's what when you paraphrase, that person feels that you're understanding and you're hearing them. Reflecting is another communication strategy, and this is reflecting the person's words in terms of feelings. So let's say your loved one recently found out that their cancer is progressing. They get home from work, maybe this is a spouse, and they begin talking about how they want to take a trip to France, and they start talking about, "Here's what we need to do. We're going to France." And you might be thinking, "What is going on?" But reflecting would look like saying something like, "This sounds really important to you." Like you're reflecting back the feelings that you're hearing. So some qualities of a good listener is being patient, non-judgmental, attentive, being calm, and being compassionate. So what to say, what not to say? Some things that are unhelpful, I'm sure there's no surprises here, are things like, "I know just how you feel." Nobody knows exactly how you feel, because you can relate to things, but often when people feel very frustrated when you say, "I know just how you feel," because they think you have no idea. You don't know me. You might know me, but you don't know what this is like for me. You can say things like, "This must be really hard," or, like, "It sounds like you're really, really struggling here." But that's one maybe to avoid. "I know just what you should do" isn't one you want to use. "I'm sure you'll be fine. Don't worry. How long do you have? I don't know how you manage," or "I feel so bad about this. It's making me cry all the time." So that's telling the other person that it's really about you and not about them. So some helpful things to say is, "I'm sorry this has happened to you. If ever you feel like talking, I'm here to listen. What are you thinking of doing, and how can I help? I'm thinking about you," or "I'm not sure what to say, but I want you to know that I love you." So I'm going to play one more short video, and then we're just going to look at a couple more slides. We're getting really close to our time. So I'm just going to take another 5 minutes to wrap up, but I really want to share this video, which I think you'll find helpful. So I'm just going to pull it up again, if you bear with me for a moment.
And then after the video, we have a few questions. So you let me know when, and then I'll chime in with some questions.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
There we go. So I've got the video up. Share screen. Here we go. All right, let's play the video.
All this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
You do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my
All right, so just a little bit of humor there, but I think it brings an important point, which is that sometimes we try to fix things, and listening has so much power. Just listening to your loved one can make a real difference. So I know there's a couple questions. I'm just going to finish up real quick a couple of things, and then I'd love to hear your questions. So there's a wonderful book called Help Me Live, 20 Things People with Cancer Want You to Know by Lori Hope. It's the #1 book I recommend to caregivers. And in it, they talk about, basically, she did a massive survey to caregivers and tried to find out what were the, sorry, not to caregivers, but to the person going through cancer. And she wanted to know, what were the top things you wish your family members and friends knew? And there are things like, you know, they want what what people most wanted from their caregivers were to know that they love them, that they will be by their side, that they will be there when and if they want to talk, that it is normal to feel sad and experience a range of emotions, and that they care. People living with cancer, you know, often don't want to hear difficult stories. So, you know, that's something we often talk about as well, is not sharing horror stories. And sometimes people, you know, might want to share something, you know, I know someone who went through this. But it's good to ask someone permission, even if it's a positive story, to ask them, I know someone who went through that, and they had a good experience. I wonder if you'd want me to share that story with you. So yes, we're not going to look at all of that. I would like to just quickly explain this exercise, because I think it's something that's very valuable that you can do on your own time. If you grab a sheet of paper and you put a circle in the middle, and all these small circles around, and you put yourself and your loved one's name in the middle circle. Think about, in these other circles around, who are all the other people and resources that are out there that can help support you. There may be family members and friends that have offered to help. Maybe there is, maybe you're connected with a church or a community group that has offered certain services. Think about who are the people and resources to help you, and start to think about, how can you utilize that? How can you use more help? Some examples might be, maybe there are people that can help with chores such as cooking, cleaning, shopping, yard work. Maybe someone can take care of the kids or pick them up from schools or activities. Driving your loved ones to appointment. Maybe someone in your family wants to be the contact person to keep others updated. If that's too much for you, maybe an adult child wants to do that for you. Staying with your loved ones so you can go out and have some respite. So accepting help isn't easy, but it can be very, very helpful. And it often, when you see caregivers that are doing well and that are the most confident that they can help their loved one, they're often practicing a lot of good self-care. I definitely have more slides. I apologize. I know we were running out of time, so I will end here, but I definitely invite you to take a look at my slides some more. Caregiver stress and burnout, there's some really good slides on that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. If I just quickly run to that slide, these are some potential signs that you may be at risk of burnout. If you're always feeling anxious, you're tired, you're exhausted every day, you have difficulty sleeping, you're overreacting to minor situations, you're experiencing your own health issues, weight gain or loss, inability to concentrate, increased use of alcohol or other drugs, feelings of hopelessness, alienation, depression. These are things to look out for and to know that there are lots of different
Sorry,
resources.
Melina,
Yeah.
your slides right now are not showing what you're reading.
Oh, no, sorry about that. Let me see. Stop share. Let me try sharing that again.
Just recently, they were okay until.
Oh, that's strange. Okay. Let me just pull that up again. Can you see it now, Karen? Caregiver burnout? My slide.
No, it shows right now that you're in protected view for enabled editing.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why it's not sharing, but I am going to stop here. Everyone will get a copy of the slides, and I definitely invite you to take a look some more. And yeah, if you do notice signs of caregiver burnout, it is good to reach out for more support and counseling. And there is lots of great support services out there, and I'm always happy to help you in navigating and finding resources in your community. If you're outside of our area of Eastern Ontario, you can always send me a message. I'm always happy to. So I will stop there. Thanks,
Great.
Karen.
Thank you so much, Melina.